Greetings, comrades. Walker here. Listen, I've got a little bit of a wrap-up, part of a wrap-up recommendation thing for part of the way through the month here of March. And I decided to devote March to murder mysteries, which I read anyway, and I like to read a lot. So, and I haven't read any for a while, so I thought I would do that. And also, I was inspired by Jane over at Yes Miss Jane, is her channel. She has a new series thing that she's starting on Mondays called Mystery Monday, where she talks about murder mysteries. So check that out if you haven't seen it. It's really good. And so let's get to it now. I'm about halfway through the month. I've got 4 books here that I'm going to go through. The first 2 are books that I really cannot recommend. The first one is this book called A Tale of Two Biddies by Kylie Logan. Now, I read this is the second book in the series. I read the first one, which was called Mayhem on the Orient Express. And it's about these women who are neighbors, and they're like bickering all the time. And so the judge sentences them to form a book club for a year and, read the books and have discussions, right? So at the end of the first book, this and that and the other, and there's a murder at a Chinese restaurant called the Orient Express. And the book they were reading was Murder on the Orient Express. So, it was pretty fun. It was pretty good. It's pretty fun. It takes place on an island in Lake Erie, which is one of the Great Lakes in North America. And it was fun. I mean, the mystery was fine. The characters were, for the most part, pretty fine. One of them was kind of a stereotype, but they were okay, and I enjoyed them. So, I was really looking forward to the second one. Well, as much as I liked the first one, I really can't stand this one. I did end up reading the whole thing, although I pretty much skimmed through about the last third of it. There are 2 things wrong with this. One is that the mystery is actually not much of a mystery. I think if you read a lot of mysteries, it's pretty obvious from early on. That I can forgive, because I think that I'm sorry, shining glaring here. I think that trying to do a mystery and figure out what you can put in that other people won't pick up on or they won't get is incredibly difficult. I mean, how do you know what somebody else is going to figure out and what they're not? I don't know how mystery writers do it. I just don't know how. So anyway, that part, I could kind of forgive. The part that I cannot forgive, that I will not forgive, is that the protagonist in this book is a woman. She's from New York City, and she's come to live in this small place, and she's kind of this tough New Yorker, and for the most part, she's pretty okay. But there's this good-looking guy that she's kind of like, keeps saying, I don't want to get involved with anyone, but of course she has the hots for him. So at one point, she's kind of like, look, there's a murder, of course, and she's starting to look into it. Well, this guy comes around, and he's obviously kind of interested in her, too. And he says, well, he just wants to make sure she's not doing some harebrained scheme, right? And, she kind of gets ticked off at him, but does she say anything to him? No, she makes a mild-mannered little comeback, right? But the book is kind of written I think it's actually written in first person, yeah, and so you get to hear her thought process, and she goes around this and that and the other. So by the end of this, instead of telling the guy off like it's none of his business what she does, and it's his opinion that it's harebrained, she goes to, oh, well, I guess I didn't get enough sleep, and I didn't have too much caffeine. And so by the time she gets to her argument, she's basically, at least to herself, apologizing for making him mad. Seriously? This is the freaking 21st century. Do women still think that way? Oh, God, I hope not. Maybe this author does. I don't know. If it were just that one thing, I might have been able to forgive it. But later on, there's another scene, pretty much hard on the heels of that one, where, there's another kind of an argument thing, and she, makes a statement that he can't refute. So what does he do? He just kisses her really good. So then she's like, and he walks away, and she's like, oh. And so she, any argument she had about telling him off and telling him to mind his own business, or that, yada, 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 just goes right out of her head, and she just kind of gets all willowy and disgusting. It was totally disgusting. So, Kylie Logan, whoever you are, I don't mind a bit of romance in my novels, but that's just stupid, okay? And disgusting, and women should not behave that way in the 21st century. If you're pissed off at a guy, tell him. So I will not be reading any more of that series, and I cannot recommend that, at least this particular book. And I don't know about the rest of them, because I don't have any intention of reading them. The next one was a book that I haven't finished, and I'm going to DNF. And this was a huge disappointment to me. I've read about a third of it, almost a half, as you can see. And I was so looking forward to this because I thought it was going to be a great series. It's called Murder in the Marais. I assume that's how it's pronounced, by Cara Black. Now, Cara Black's pretty well known, and she's got a lot of books published. I think like 10 or so. They take place in Paris. And I really had high hopes for this book, and it was hugely disappointing. And I thought maybe there was something wrong with me. And then I looked on Goodreads, and almost everyone gave it like maybe 2 stars, maybe 3. So I felt a little better about that. Yeah, I got not quite halfway through it, and I'm not going to read the rest. I don't have a problem with novels that are basically plot-driven. That's fine, and that's what this is, but the characters are really shallow. There's no sense of place, and something that takes place in Paris. For me, I really want a sense of place. I'm reading about someplace other than here, and basically the way it reads. And I have seen this with other books that I've attempted to read that they take place in France, but they're not written by someone who's French. They're written by someone who's English, who maybe has lived in France, maybe even for a long time, but you can tell the difference. It's just not the same. Basically, if you change the names, it could happen. This could just as well be New York City. There's nothing about it that's any different. The protagonist is always getting pissed off at someone, but for the life of me, I can't see why. There's nothing that the author gives as to why. It's like, the person's not answering her questions. She's a detective. The person's not answering her questions. It's like, well, she's an old lady. She kind of rambles. You got to have patience if you want to be a detective and get your answer. She's pissed off about that. She gets angry about this. She gets upset when people lie to her, and she's lying to everybody she meets about her investigation. So I was just hugely disappointed in this. It's like I said, there's no character depth there. Even when there are descriptions of places, it's like a veneer. There's just no depth. There's no depth to the sense of place. There's no depth to the characters. And I mean, the protagonist goes so far as to sleep with someone that she knows might possibly be the murderer. She's not sleeping with him to get information. She's just sleeping with him because she's horny. Seriously? I don't know. Maybe the rest of them get better. I don't intend to read any more of them and find out. That is definitely a do not recommend. Next up, thank heaven, there were at least 2 good books. Flying Too High by Kerry Greenwood, who is an Australian author, and she writes the Phryne Fisher series. She writes another one too, but this one is the Phryne Fisher series. It takes place in the 1920s, which I love. And Phryne Fisher, who has money now and originally is from Australia. Her father ends up with a peerage and they go to England and whatever, but she's come back to Australia. And this is the second book in the series. This is a kind of an odd little book, actually. They've made a TV series out of this as well, and they didn't make one out of this book. And I can see why after reading it. It's a little bit different. There's kind of like 2 stories going on. One of them is predominant in the first half, and the other one is predominant in the second half. It was still an enjoyable read. I liked it. I liked the characters in the book a lot. It's a bit of a non-traditional kind of story, but if you like 1920s stuff and you like mysteries, you can see this. They're not very big. This one's like a little over 150 pages, and this is about the size of her books. But you know what? She packs a lot of stuff into those 152 pages, and it's not like it's tiny print, or I guess you can't see it. But I don't know. I guarantee you, there's more depth in this than there would be in the whole of that Cara Black book, I think. So anyway, I highly enjoyed it. I do recommend it. This is the second one I've read. I'm really looking forward to reading all the rest of the series this series. And the next one is one that I just loved. It's one of the Maisie Dobbs novels, Jacqueline Winspear, Among the Mad. And this may be my second favorite of the ones I've read so far. And I haven't read them all. I've been reading them very slowly to kind of spread them out because I do like them. My favorite one of all is Messenger of Truth, which is just beautiful and devastating. And this is a really close second. The depth. These books, if you're not familiar with them, take place in the very late 1920s, early 1930s. I think this is like the end of 1931 when this book takes place. Maisie Dobbs was a nurse in the Great War. And the book started like 1928, about 10 years after the war, and she is a psychologist and an investigator. And most of the cases that she gets, that the books are about, she has other cases that she gets, but the books tend to be about cases that are in some way related to the Great War and the aftermath and the struggle that people have to try and survive. And it takes place in England, and all the troubles and the survival issues that the men have who came back, especially the ones who were hurt or injured and can't just pick up their life as it was before. And apparently things changed a lot in England before and after the Great War. Economically, it changed tremendously. But this book is about someone who is threatening to wreak havoc on a large scale in London. And they're trying to find out who it is. I don't want to give too much of it away. That's about as much as you need to know. It's a mystery novel, but the characterization in this, especially regarding the soldiers who have returned and who are injured and who just are struggling to just survive at all and not be ignored, is really good. And it's amazing. I was in tears during this book, and I just can't recommend it enough. Like I said, of the ones that I've read so far, and I think this is about the fifth or sixth one, this is my second favorite after Messenger of Truth. And I think this one is as good as that, and it certainly is rich as that. And rich is a good word. It is very rich. And compared to that Kara Black book, oh my God, it's like night and day. It's 180 degrees difference, because there's so much depth of character and story and ambiance and ambiance about the world that this is happening in. It just makes a huge difference. So, and they just have the most freaking wonderful covers. All the covers are like this, with this very graphic, very striking, dramatic light and shadow on them. I love them. I absolutely love the covers of these books. So anyway, those are the 4 books that I'm going to do with this. So Flying Too High and Among the Mad are my 2 recommendations for this month. I liked them both. Definitely check out those Franny Fisher books by Carrie Greenwood if you haven't, and the Maisie Dobbs series by Jacqueline Winspear. I really like them a lot. So and I tried to do this video and another one last weekend, and things just did not work out at all. So I'll probably do at least one more video this week. I want to do a kind of a book haul for some things that I've gotten so far in March. So that's it for now. If you've read these books and you want to talk about them or have comments about them, let me know in the comments down below. Okay, thanks for stopping by. Happy trails and happy reading. Bye.